And it was the same story over and over again. Years of neglect, total detachment from the people actually making decisions, a feeling that there's just not a future to get behind. Well, that's where we come in, because everything we do between now and the next election must be bold.
Bruh, look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No. Look at the top of his head. Look at his lips.
Within the Labour Party, Keir Starmer appears to be weakened, and even the left-wing factions seem to be turning against him. Many people are now seeking alternatives to traditionally left-leaning party, similar to how some view the rise of right-wing politics. Meanwhile, reform efforts within the right seem weak, partly due to Nigel Farage's ego blinding him. As a result, there is a growing trend on the left of people looking for new options. One party on the rise is the Green Party, led by Zach Polanski, who is gaining attention with his popular TikTok videos. The Green Party is focusing more on environmental-friendly economic policies rather than immigration issues. So who are the Green Party and what are they about? The Green Party of England and Wales is a left-leaning environmentalist political party focused on sustainability, social justice and addressing climate change through policies like achieving net zero emissions ahead of 2050 targets, investing heavily in renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, while phasing out nuclear power due to concerns over safety, waste and costs. A stance critics argue overlooks nuclear's role in reliably low-carbon energy. Now, on the polling rise on the left, it seems like it might be catching up with Reform since they have staggered more recently in polling. On housing, the party pushes for affordable homes via rent controls, building 150,000 social homes annually. And a recent 2025 conference motion to effectively abolish private landlordship-ism by transitioning rental properties to public or community ownership, aiming to end exploitation but raising questions about property rights and market impacts. Regarding their drug policies, they advocate for an evidence-based reform, including decriminalising possession for personal use and legalising regulated sales of substances like cannabis, with party leader Zach Polanski in 2025 endorsing full legalisation of all drugs to treat addiction as a mental health issue rather than a criminal one. But this has sparked debate on public health risk, with everyone being drugged out of their head can lead to uncontrolled substance abuse. Overall, their manifesto emphasises a new Green Deal for economical transformation, universal basic income trials, and progressive taxation, drawn from eco-socialist influences. Zach, running the communist Islamic Slopper fest with how insane some of his policies are, not to mention nuclear energy, if done correctly. As long as you have a stone floor to absorb the radiation, and arguably with better technology for managing nuclear wastage, nuclear can be more cleaner since wind and solar are not powerful enough to produce enough power, as well are even worse when not maintained or designed properly, even with planned obsolescence in mind. Materials not being properly recycled could lead to more landfill if they expire within 3 to 5 years. Similarly, with electric cars like Teslas, that most of their batteries are made out of cobalt, lithium and farms and nickel, of which are not sustainable. A video I watched about making wind turbines, redesigning them so they're more efficient or having multiple propellers so it creates more energy. Scotland being so windy, it could potentially work, but in England it's only so windy most of the time, not to mention solar panels. With the UK only at certain times, usually in the summer, it's mostly cloudy and could not produce enough light, not to mention not being close enough to the sun to absorb it. There was this kind of meme back in the 90s, a concept of using roads to power electric vehicles via solar panels in the road. Only problem with that being is that they could potentially break due to the weight of the vehicle, even with it reinforced glass. Being completely anti-nuclear energy, with the left crying wealth of more pollution from oil spills or gas affecting wildlife through other than the cost and nuclear wastage or even a nuclear meltdown from a reactor. It's better than coal since, for example, China and India have the highest coal production usage for power that causes high levels of pollution, compared to somewhere like the UK that also rely more on oil and gas energy production, but it's more sustainable option since the UK could run out of those, and after Margaret Thatcher, with her neoliberalism, shut down most of the UK's coal production and the loss of the flatlands, with the UK now has to rely on it. In its decriminalising drugs can lead to overdoses, as well can have an impact on mental health and unemployment with drug users, since from my own experience, drugs can mess with your head and make you lazy and unfocused, as many stoners are not the most stable of people in my opinion. For example, America has a huge drug problem within Portland, for example, such as fentanyl or crack usage, and it's all high time. Cracking down on these substances could lead to people not to use these hardcore drugs. Using them for health reasons is a lazy excuse for people to overindulge for recreational usage with weed. It's illegally in the UK with recreational use with weed, but in the UK it is still illegal. You can still purchase CBD oil, being the most legal, with the THC compound removed. There are some exceptions, but with the communist take on legalising this is more detrimental goodwill than anything. Nearer to the general election in 2029, I would say that the Greens are competing with both Labour and Reform. However, it is unlikely, despite its 140,000 members, majority of them are leftists and Muslims, and them driving at more of a wedge as well as splitting the vote nearer the general election. I would say Zach Polanski is a deeply unserious person, not to mention it being a communist slopper fest. Even then, I do see many leftists appealing towards the Green Party. With Reform taking the lead in polls still, I would say they do not have anything to worry about, and them taking more W's despite the setbacks recently with the leaked call and infighting, as well as the Kent County Council losing members. The left clearly also looking for a better alternative than the centre-left Starmer's Labour Party. Zach's fancy TikTok edits might appeal to some Zoomer voters since Labour have given up on the working class. I would say Zach, however, is selling another slopper solution, nor a fix via the crime rate, so older voters might not want to vote for him also. So anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video about me talking about Zach Polanski, the Green Party, and why it, like I said earlier in the video, is just basically just a communist slopper party, where basically communists think that, that if they solve all the issues just from environmental issues, just like to do with energy and all these other drug issues, then it would fix the problem. But again, it's just a lazy solution. It kind of reminds me of when Terry Davis, the schizophrenic programmer I think I covered on my channel, he actually mentions that when, obviously he mentioned about socialism and said why it's lazy, and basically said that if you've got 70% unemployed, yeah, I mean, well, there you go, you got something to work off, but if you just replace those people and get more people in, he said it's just lazy. I think that's what his analogy was, where basically they just come up with lazy options, though they might seem more, I guess, to do with, and obviously leftists think that it's more environmental issues to do with pollution, and I think I was going to emphasise on this point where, it's more pollution and oil spills, and yeah, there are some serious issues with pollution. For example, in the UK, it's mostly moderate. Obviously, we're an island, and obviously there are places where we can have wind turbines, but wind turbines then kill wildlife, including whales and seagulls, also being whacked, as well as rare birds, and also to do with in Cornwall, there is a lot of obviously sewage issues there, but that is less to do with pollution and more to do with the water companies being able to dump things. So I think when the leftists also do talk about it just being economical issues such as drug uses, like, yeah man, a lot of free hippie spirited people, which I know some people, even right-wing, would agree on this, but I think it's more to do in the case of basically don't have a bunch of society where people are drugged out, because eventually we are going to even then have a high crime rate, as I mentioned, to do with Portland in America, where fentanyl and crack usage is so high to the point where you just see people literally off their tits on drums, especially like places like New York and a few other places in America. But I guess when it comes down to it, especially Drugland being the death capital of Europe of drug overdoses, I think that's pretty insane that these people think they're going to solve this by just adding more to this and trying to basically go back to the Stone Age and use coal when you look at something like nuclear. Yeah, though it is risky, it is a very good viable solution because then it produces enough power. But anyway, and as well, when Daniel Gale from the Homeland Party actually did critique Zach Polanski and also not tackling crime, I do think that he made a few good points about all of the hypocrisy that comes from the, I guess, to do with the left. And as well, if you want to click on these videos here where I've talked about other similar issues like this, and if you want to click on those, I talk about those a little bit more in detail. And before you click on this video, I have links to my other channels and my Discord in the link in the description below.